Retired General's shocking reaction when he saw her guarding the tarmac at 3 a.m. It was a night that should have been quiet, but something sinister loomed over the airport tarmac. The moon hung low, casting eerie shadows, illuminating a figure standing utterly still, dressed in military attire, her metallic badge shimmering like an ominous star. At 3 a.m., when even the hardest of souls slumbered, there she was guarding the tarmac, eyes piercing through the darkness like a hawk on the hunt. Retired General Carl Anderson, known for his steely resolve, stumbled upon the scene, his heart racing as he approached. It wasn't just her uniform that shocked him, it was the haunted look in her eyes, a wildness about her that felt both protective and threatening. Who was she? What secrets had drawn her here? The wind whistled, sending chills down Carl's spine as he moved closer. He saw shadows flickering behind her as if the very night conspired to hide answers from him. His gut twisted with unease. Flights were delayed, passengers restless, but here she was, oblivious, or perhaps awakened by the whispers of ghosts only she could hear. The air hung heavy with secrets, that strange energy knotting in Carl's chest as he tried to piece it all together. Was she an oracle guarding some hidden truth? Suddenly, the silence shattered. A radio crackled to life, and he heard a voice know, a command, echoing through the night. "Hold your position," it barked, but the words felt eerie, like a warning to confront danger or to flee. Sweat broke out on Carl's forehead as he took another step. Why was she here? His mind raced with possibilities, each darker than the last. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As he stood frozen, processing the wild scene unfolding before him, the woman's gaze snapped to him, locked on with an intensity that felt like a bolt of electricity. Could she sense his thoughts? The ground beneath him felt like it was shifting, the air crackling with tension. Was he trespassing into a realm far beyond the normal? The questions bombarded him like a tempest, every instinct screaming to run. But he couldn't move, the mystery clenched around him like a vice. And just as Carl opened his mouth to speak, a shadow darted across the tarmac, disappearing into the darkened corners of the hangar, and the woman turned ever so slightly, her breathing shallow. Who were they guarding the night from? And what lay hidden in the depths of the shadows? The chill in the air thickened, a palpable tension wrapping around Carl like a suffocating shroud. He could feel his heart pound, a primal beat echoing in the stillness as he strained to catch his breath. The woman's piercing gaze held him captive, their unspoken connection teetering on the brink of revelation or madness. As the shadows slipped into darkness, a low rumble vibrated through the ground, the sound of heavy machinery coming to life. Carl's instincts kicked in, a mix of training and survival screaming at him to act. He could not allow fear to be his master. What lay ahead? Just mere steps took him closer to danger. "Who are you?" he finally managed, his voice a choke against the heavy air. The question hung between them, fragile yet electrifying. She took a step forward, her movements fluid and deliberate. "I am what remains of a forgotten mission," she replied, her voice steady but tinged with weariness. "You should leave. This place isn't safe tonight." Her words landed like a rock in his stomach. A forgotten mission? The general's mind raced. What mission? Why was he here now, and what did she mean by safe? He had lived a life steeped in military service, yet nothing could prepare him for this surreal nightmare. The radio crackled again, interrupting their charged exchange. A different voice blared over the static, disheveled and frantic. "Team Alpha, report. We have an unidentified breach on the east side. I repeat, a breach." His blood ran cold as the impact of those words sank in. The tarmac, their shared stage, was under threat. Without a word, the woman instinctively turned, her expression morphing into one of fierce resolve. She eyed the hangar where the shadow had disappeared moments earlier. A silent understanding passed between them. The night was no longer theirs to command. Carl's thoughts raced. Should he trust her? Every military bone in him screamed caution, yet the instinct to protect, to uncover the truth, surged. "I'm with you," he blurted, surprise swelling in his chest. Before she could respond, they were enveloped by an unnatural silence. The world felt suspended, as if the very fabric of time was caught between breaths. Then, a crash erupted from the shadows, splintering the silence. A rattle of chains, the grating of metal, punctured the air, vibrating through his bones. "Go!" she shouted, urgency flooding her voice. They didn't hesitate, each moved as one, sprinting toward the hissing sounds emanating from the hangar. Each step was an electrifying gambit, every shadow flickering along the path feeling like a threat waiting to pounce. But just as they neared the corner of the hangar, Carl spotted a figure emerging from the darkness. The silhouette staggered into the moonlight, revealing a menacing look, eyes wild, as if ripped from a nightmare. "Stop right there!" the stranger yelled, raising a glinting object high. Carl felt a surge of adrenaline as he raised his hands instinctively. Who was this? An enemy? Something more? The air felt charged, the tension burgeoning, nearing a breaking point. But then, the woman at his side sprang into action. Her military precision was evident, as she charged forward. Just as the figure prepared to strike, she dove low, tackling him away from Carl, and in that moment, everything changed. Secrets would unravel, and the darkness lurking nearby would reveal itself. What awaited in the depths? What truths would claw their way into the light? The pulse of danger surged between them, and the night had just begun. The sound of flesh hitting flesh echoed through the night. Carl felt the air rush by him as the woman collided with the attacker, knocking the weapon out of his hand. It clattered to the ground, glinting ominously in the dim light. Panic surged in Carl's chest. He instinctively glanced toward the radio crackling in the distance, the urgent voice still calling for help. They didn't have time to waste. "Get up!" Carl shouted, urging the woman as she grappled with the stranger. She twisted her body, using her weight to restrain him, a fierce determination etched across her face. The man, wild-eyed and panting, fought back. His hands flailed, reaching desperately for anything, but she held firm, locking him in a tight grip. Carl didn't wait, instincts kicked in as he rushed forward, adrenaline propelling him. But the moment he laid his hand on the man's shoulder, the stranger spat back, "You don't know what you're doing." Carl's heart raced. "What the hell does that mean?" he demanded, jerking the man backward, intent on dragging him away from the chaos. The woman panted, her grip faltering for just a beat, and in that split second, the stranger broke free. With surprising agility, he twisted away, pushing Carl back with a shoulder, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and something darker. "You're in over your head, both of you." Carl stumbled but regained his balance, fists clenched. The weight of the situation crashed down on him. They were being drawn into something much larger, and the man's panic spoke of a truth he couldn't grasp yet. "Stay down." The woman barked, and her tone snapped Carl back into focus. She lunged forward again, this time more resolutely, tackling the man to the ground with a force that took Carl by surprise. The low growl of machinery still rumbled in the distance, adding to the urgency. Carl's mind raced. Who was this man? And what was this forgotten mission the woman spoke of? He knelt beside them, ready to help, but as he reached for the man, the stranger's eyes suddenly fixed on him, wide with a predatory intensity. "You really believe you can trust her?" He spat, breathless and frantic. "She's not what you think she is." Carl froze. The accusation slithered into his thoughts, and uncertainty gnawed at the edges of his resolve. He shot a glance at the woman, who was now pinning the man down with her knee. Her expression remained fierce, but a flicker of hesitation passed over her face. Just then, a low growl emanated from the darkness behind the hangar, deep and menacing. Carl's instincts screamed at him, something was approaching. The very earth seemed to vibrate with rage, echoing the roar of whatever lay hidden. "We need to leave," he shouted, the previous conflict fading as the reality of their situation sank in. But the man beneath the woman laughed darkly, the sound echoing in the night as he spat back, "You can't escape what's coming. It's already too late." The woman's sharp eyes widened, understanding something Carl could not. "What do you mean?" she pressed, wrestling to keep the man subdued as he thrashed beneath her. Before he could answer, the shadows behind them shifted. A glimpse of red eyes flickered, glowing ominously. Panic surged anew. Carl's heart raced. What were they facing? The night felt alive, electric with anticipation and dread. "Run!" Carl shouted, and they surged back, moving as one toward whatever awaited them, leaving the mystery of their attacker behind for now. But as they bolted, a sinister laugh rang loudly, twining with the growl beyond the shadows. In that chilling moment, Carl knew, the real fight was just beginning, and truths buried deep in the night were clawing their way to the surface. What secrets lived in the very heart of this darkness? And could they survive long enough to uncover them? The shadows closed in around them as Carl, the woman, and the man slipped away from the chaos. The oppressive night clung tightly, thick with an energy that stung Carl's senses. Every breath he took felt heavy, filled with tension that made his chest tighten. They dashed toward the far end of the hangar, where flickering lights cast fleeting glimmers on the pavement. The growl followed them, a reminder that whatever lurked in the darkness was not far behind. "Where to?" the woman gasped, glancing back nervously. Her resolve was palpable, but Carl could see the strain in her eyes. "We can't just run blind. Find a place to hide," Carl shouted, adrenaline pushing his volume higher. "We can't let it see us." As they turned a corner, the predatory growl escalated into a bone-chilling roar, a sound sharp enough to split the night like a knife. In that moment, they froze, glancing back toward the source. Red eyes glimmered like coals in the dark, illuminating a massive figure lurking just beyond the rays of light. "Stay low," Carl hissed, his instincts kicking in fiercely as they ducked behind a stack of crates. The woman dropped beside him, her eyes wide with horror. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know," Carl whispered, as they crouched in a tense silence. The man they subdued earlier was still with them, though his demeanor had shifted from aggressive to fearful. He peered over the crates, assessing the situation, and Carl could see something flash in his eyes: recognition. "Dread? They'll come for you." The man's voice was trembling, revealing a stark vulnerability. "The moment they sense your fear, they'll attack. It's their nature." "What do you know about it?" Carl snapped, his frustration boiling over. He wanted to trust the woman, but the man's words gnawed at him like a ravenous beast. Was she truly on their side? She pressed her back against the wall, lowering her voice. "We have to move. They hunt in packs. We can't stay here." Suddenly, the growl erupted again, more furious this time, as the creature stalked just feet away from their hiding spot. Its breath came in heavy, gusty waves, filling the air with a noxious scent. Carl's heart pounded in rhythm with the sound, his fingers trembled as he gripped a nearby metal pipe, unsure if it would even help. "Listen," she continued, urgency threading her tone, "I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to stop this, whatever it is. But you need to trust me." "Trust?" The man scoffed, his eyes darting between them. "You think trust matters now? We're all caught in something bigger than ourselves." In that instant, the creature lunged forward. Its hulking silhouette was illuminated momentarily as it kicked debris, sending them scattering. Carl gasped, instinctively pulling the woman closer as a surge of instinct urged him to run. But amid the chaos, he couldn't shake the weight of doubt. This woman, could she be their savior or their doom? "Go!" Carl shouted, and they sprinted towards the darkened perimeter of the hangar, leaving the man glancing back at his wasted chance. But Carl couldn't afford to consider any rescue attempts. The looming threat overshadowed everything. As they barreled away, the echoes of the creature's roar reverberated through the night, an haunting reminder of the danger creeping ever closer. Carl felt the urgency gnawing at the back of his mind. They had to uncover the truth fast, or this terrible darkness would consume them all. What does it want? He shouted over the cacophony, desperation clawing at his throat. The woman shot him a sideways glance, a mix of fierce intent and fear locked within her glare. It's not just hunting us. It wants something more, something we might have stolen. Just then, the ground trembled again, as if answering her words with a violent tremor. A rush of anxiety swelled within Carl. What had they unwittingly become part of? As shadows danced around them, the instinct to survive became a maddening urgency, steering them deeper into the unknown. The roar echoed again, each time closer, sharper. Without warning, something terrible lunged from the shadows. What price would they pay to unveil the terrifying truth? The darkness closed in around them, swallowing the sounds of their hurried breaths. Carl pulled the woman along, adrenaline surging. The thumping of his heart matched the pounding of his feet against the slick pavement. They needed to keep moving. Just ahead, a jagged corridor emerged, shrouded in deeper shadows. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting between Carl and the looming threat behind. "What's in there?" she asked, fear lacing her voice. "Does it matter? We've got no choice," Carl urged, yanking her forward. The growl behind them devolved into a rumble again, that dreadful sound echoing with more ferocity than before. They ducked into the corridor, the air thick and musty. Carl could barely see, but the woman's hand clasped his tightly, guiding him. Instinctively, he reached for his makeshift weapon, the metal pipe, his knuckles white with tension. "What do you think it wants from us?" Carl said, pulling his voice into a whisper. "I don't know," she gasped, glancing back anxiously. "But if it's hunting us for something we have." The thought hung heavy between them, thick as the shadows around. Carl felt each heartbeat echo in his ears, each hammering pulse a reminder of how close they were to danger. From somewhere deeper in the corridor, a sound echoed. Footsteps. No, more like claws scraping against concrete. Carl tensed, ready to fight or flee. As they ventured deeper, the corridor began to widen into a vast, open space. The dim light revealed rows of crates stacked against the walls. Something flickered in the corner of his vision, a figure, maybe. He squinted, heart racing. "Keep your voice down," he quietly warned, but the woman was already moving toward the flicker. "Wait." She slid closer, her form silhouetted against the shadows. Carl followed, creeping up to her side. "What do you see?" It looks like some kind of symbol," she breathed, pointing at a detailed carving on one of the crates. "This is it. This could be what it wants." Carl leaned in, the fear ebbed slightly, replaced by a chilling curiosity. The engraved markings swirled and coiled, ancient and ominous, like a warning. His fingertips brushed against the wood as he tried to decipher its meaning. Suddenly, the growl returned, fiercer than before, echoing painfully close. The air crackled with anticipation, a sense of dread settling in. They had disturbed something they shouldn't have. "Move. Now," Carl whispered, grabbing her by the wrist. He could feel the heat radiating from behind them, the creature's presence a suffocating reality. They rushed further into the space, the sound of their footsteps drowned out by the creature's relentless pursuit. Ahead lay a set of heavy doors, barely illuminated. "Can we get through here?" Carl shouted desperately. "I'll try," she replied, sprinting to the door. But as she turned the handle, it wouldn't budge. Panic surged in her eyes as she rattled it fiercely. "Step back." Carl instinctively kicked at the door, but it wouldn't yield. A roar erupted from the dark beyond, sending shards of ice crawling down Carl's spine. Keep it together, he urged, just as the rumbling grew louder. Shadows flickered in the corners, twisting around the doorway. Behind them, the red eyes glowed again, and the creature surged forward, its growl a death knell. With an explosive crash, the door finally gave way, swinging open. They stumbled through, just as the beast lunged. As the door slammed shut behind them, trapping the creature outside, Carl spun around to take in their grim surroundings. The room was dark, littered with strange relics and equipment he couldn't comprehend. What is this place? He breathed, feeling the cold grip of realization sink in. The woman's gaze wandered, a mix of awe and fear. I think it's a research facility, a lab. A simple question clawed its way to the surface, something more dangerous than fear. What did they do here? Before she could answer, a distant rumble shook the ground, vibrating through the air. A dim light flickered to life overhead, revealing walls plastered with disturbing images and symbols. Carl's stomach twisted as another realization hit him. They weren't just facing a predator, they had stumbled into a nest of unknown horrors. And as the sound of scratching began again from the locked door, he knew this was only the beginning. What awaited them just beyond those barriers? Carl's heart raced, the echo of their recent escape from the creature still fresh in his mind. The narrow confines of the room felt like a tomb, shadows dancing on the walls like phantoms of the past. The woman pressed her back against the door, breathless, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Carl, what's our next move? She gasped, glancing at the door as if expecting it to burst open. He scanned the room, looking for an exit or something that could give them an advantage. The clutter of scientific equipment, twisted metal tubes, cages, and vials filled with murky liquid made the space feel claustrophobic. Let us find a way out. We can't stay here. His voice was low, but urgency rang through it. As they crept deeper into the shadows, the dim light revealed unsettling details, charts plastered on the walls detailing grotesque experiments, images which made Carl's skin crawl. Some showed creatures that resembled the one chasing them. Visions of nightmarish forms twisted and turned on the paper, bringing fresh dread flooding through him. This place is a nightmare, the woman whispered, her voice barely escaping her throat. Whatever they were doing here, it's about more than just hunting, Carl said, stepping carefully past a broken piece of equipment. We need to figure out what it is before whatever is out there gets in here. As they reached the center of the room, Carl spotted a heavy metal door on the opposite wall, its surface lined with strange glyphs. His heart leapt. That could lead us out, he murmured, moving toward it, but just then, the scratching at the door behind them intensified, nails scraping in a frantic rhythm that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He glanced back, but it was hard to see through the gloom. Something powerful and massive lay just beyond the other side. Maybe it'll give up, she offered, though her facade of bravery was faltering. It won't, he whispered, stepping closer to the metal door. We don't have much time. He reached for the handle, but hesitation flooded through him. What lay beyond wasn't just escape, it could be more danger. I need you to cover me, he said, glancing back at her. Cover you how? I don't have anything. Panic seeped into her voice again, but determination flickered in her eyes. If it comes through that door, we've got to fight back. I'll take the lead, but if it comes down to it, you keep that door blocked. Got it? She nodded, her grip tightening around a metal rod she picked up earlier. His eyes caught the flicker of resolve in her gaze. They were in this together, and the growing bond urged him on. With a deep breath, Carl turned back to the door. He pushed it open, and it creaked loudly, protesting like the bones of a forgotten giant. Light flooded in, their escape illuminated, but uncertainty lay just beyond. As they stepped through the threshold, they were met with an expansive hallway flooded with intermittent fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Shadows flitted at the edges, ghostly fingers beckoning to draw them in. And then, the unmistakable sound of their pursuer echoed through the corridor. A shrill roar pierced the air, sending shock waves through Carl's body. They had just stepped from one peril into another. "This way!" Carl shouted, sprinting down the corridor, adrenaline igniting his muscles. The woman was right on his heels, but the creature's growl surged back to life behind them, rumbling an unholy chant of pursuit. As they dashed past doors that lined the hall, desperate needs collided with desperation. The sounds behind them growled louder, and the scratch of claws against metal set their pace. Then, suddenly, they reached an intersecting hallway, 3 possible routes, all marked with warning signs and flickering lights. "Which way?" she yelled, panic edging into her voice. "Left," Carl shouted, not even knowing why. It felt instinctual, as if something drove him there, but his instincts could be wrong. Would they make it out alive, or had they just signed their own death warrants? The chase thrummed in his blood, and with each passing second, the fear cemented its grip on him. They plunged down the left hallway, anticipation mounting for whatever nightmare awaited them next. Just ahead, a deafening crash echoed, and the lights flickered before dying completely. What darkness loomed ahead, waiting to swallow them whole? The sudden loss of light enveloped them in a thick blanket of darkness. Carl's heart pounded in his chest. Instinctively, he reached for the woman's arm, pulling her close. "Stay quiet," he whispered, the urgency lacing his voice. A low growl reverberated from somewhere behind them, a primal sound that curled around them like smoke. They hadn't completely escaped. Whatever had been chasing them was still lurking, still hungry. Taking a deep breath, Carl forced himself to listen. The echoes of the creature's pursuit were ghostly whispers now, but they were less than 100 yards away. He could almost feel its breath, hot and stale. "We need to find somewhere to hide," he said, scanning the darkened corridor. Just as he dictated the plan, a faint blue glow flickered on ahead, barely piercing the murky shadows. It pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Without thinking, he grabbed the woman's hand, urging her forward. "This way. We have to move fast." They dashed towards the light, adrenaline fueling their limbs. Every sound around them was amplified in the silence, footfalls echoing against the tiled floor, the quickening rhythm of their breaths, and the faint scrape of claws close behind. When they finally reached the source of the glow, they found themselves in front of a battered control panel clipped to the wall. The screen was smeared with grime, but the light was emanating from several buttons blinking erratically. It seemed abandoned, yet it had power, a glimmer of a chance. "Do you know how to work this?" the woman breathed, her eyes darting around suspiciously, scanning for any sign of their pursuer. "Not a clue, but we might be able to use this to our advantage," Carl replied, brushing his fingers over the buttons. One button had a recognizable symbol, an elevator. Without thinking, he pressed it. The machine sputtered to life, making a groaning noise that echoed through the hallway. A shaft of light revealed an elevator door sliding open just a foot away. "We need to get in," he urged, steeling himself against the remnants of skepticism lodged in his heart. The woman hesitated, glancing back down the corridor. "Carl, what if it's a trap? What if it leads us right to—" "It's better than waiting here for it to find us," he interrupted sharply. With a nervous nod, she stepped inside. He followed, and as the entrance shut behind them with a resonant clang, he felt both relieved and terrified. The illumination inside the elevator was dim, and the atmosphere thick with dread. As they descended, the sensation of falling echoed within him. Would they simply trade one enemy for another? A faint whirring noise hinted that they were dropping faster than expected. Sweat slid down the back of Carl's neck, his collected determination giving way to a creeping sense of doom. "Do you think it'll follow us?" she said, breaking the thick silence. "I don't know. I just hope we get out of here before he could finish his sentence. The elevator jolted violently, screeching metal grating against metal. The lights flickered again, and the little control panel sparked dangerously. With a sudden wrench, the elevator ground to a halt. The lights flickered once more, then went out completely. Thick blackness surrounded them, wrapping around like a suffocating shroud. "Great," he muttered, trying to pry open the doors, but they wouldn't budge. "Just perfect. Now we're trapped." Do you really think it can't find us here? Her voice was tight, terror creasing her brow. Before he could respond, an almost deafening crash banged against the top of the elevator. Metal shrieked, and something heavy landed with a thud, sending vibrations through the walls. Carl's breath caught. "We need to be ready, whatever that is," he said, trying to fight the panic rising like bile in his throat. Then, the screeching sound of claws began to scrape against the metal above. Had they evaded danger only to walk straight into a death trap? An unearthly growl echoed from above. What if they weren't alone after all? The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. Carl strained to hear beyond the scratching, the creature above continuing its relentless assault against the metal. His heart raced, and he felt the woman's panic resonate in their shared silence. "Carl," her voice trembled, but he could barely make out her features in the faint light that still flickered from the control panel. "What if it won't get to us? Just stay quiet." He tried to sound confident, but inside, dread pulsed. The growling was closer now, a low, guttural sound that reverberated through the elevator shaft. Panic surged. The thought of his inability to protect her gnawed at him. A claw scraped down the elevator, and a loud crack echoed as a part of the ceiling buckled. "We can't stay here," he hissed, trying the doors again, but they felt immovable, as if bonded by a grim promise. Just then, the elevator shuddered, and for a split second, Carl felt weightless, as if suspended between two worlds: safety and inevitable doom. A small shriek escaped the woman's lips, cracking the tension that hung in the air, as they landed back with a bone-jarring thud. "It's moving," she gasped. The elevator had shifted downwards again, unexpectedly descending further, and they braced against the wall, both of them hardening against uncertainty. "Whatever it is," he said, trying to maintain a steady tone, "we'll find a way out." They reached another jolt, the lights flickering again. The control panel blinked erratically, and Carl locked eyes with her, a silent agreement drifting between them. They needed to act that he gripped her hand, and together they edged closer to the door, his intuition urging him to listen. The scraping had stopped. A cold chill settled in. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, eyes wide. The world outside shifted, frantic footfalls, the scuffle of claws rushing across floors beyond their immediate prison. That he pressed his ear against the metal, and just as he did, another cacophony erupted, more growls accompanied by shouts. They were close, very close, and whatever hunted them had allies. "They're all around," he murmured. "We have to be ready for anything." And then it happened. The rattling began again, the deafening crash of something smacking into the ceiling above them, causing dust to rain down. Carl reacted instinctively, throwing an arm around the woman as something tore through the darkness, suddenly shoving against the top of their cage with a deadly scrape. The metal groaned ominously, and panic rose sharply between them. "What if it? Enough!" he shouted, a surge of urgency and fear pushing him. "We have to do something." Just as he thought the crawling terror would break through, the elevator lurched violently again. The panels buzzed and flickered, dim lights revealing a flurry of shadows above, monstrous shapes surrounding them, and then, silence fell. It was the kind of silence that felt alive, brimming with dread. The woman's breath caught, and Carl felt his hold falter, the heavy weight of the moment crushing him. The glow faded, and darkness swallowed him whole just as a fleeting glimmer of hope flickered in the form of distant voices echoing through the gloom. "Help!" The word slipped out, instinctive, almost a prayer. The moment hung on a knife's edge. Were they meant to be rescued, or was this the end? Suddenly, the metal groaned again, and with a spine-chilling crack, something broke free. Carl gasped, and as he turned to the elevator doors, he caught the briefest glimpse of something slithering inside. What had come for them? Would it be salvation or death? The darkness constricted around Carl like a vice. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, drowning out the distant echoes that floated in the chilling silence. The woman beside him was rigid, her eyes wide with terror. His grip tightened around her hand, offering what little strength he could muster. "Did you see that?" she whispered, barely moving her lips. He could barely respond. The faint image of something monstrous lingered in his mind, the way it seemed to writhe just beyond reach. Something dangerous was moving in their shadows. It's gone, he managed, but even he didn't believe the words. Suddenly, a metal clang resounded above them. Carl's spine stiffened. The weight of uncertainty pressed him down. The stifling stillness was usurped by another horrifying growl, this one deeper, echoing like thunder through the elevator shaft. It must be hunting, she breathed, urgency racing in her voice. Carl could see raw fear dance in her gaze. He had to think fast, couldn't he let it spiral away from them. Shoo, listen, he ordered in a hushed tone. But she wasn't the only one terrified. They were surrounded by a host of predators, and this was a deadly game of survival not unlike a last-ditch match in a war zone. Another growl erupted, closer this time. A shiver crept down his spine, and he was hit with a wave of memories, flashes of the battlefield, the risks he'd taken, the lives he'd lost in the name of defense. We have to move. He leaned closer to the door, eyes straining through the cracks for any sign of life or escape. The dim lights flickered again, blinding brilliance revealing jagged shadows above, twisted forms reaching for them. They could feel the hungry eyes of unseen creatures drilling into their souls. Carl! She gasped, her voice edged with despair that made his lungs close in on themselves. Just then, the doors rattled, the maddening noise cascading like an avalanche through the silence. It felt as if the world outside was threatening to swallow them whole. Hold on. He urged, his voice rising as he thrust his feet back against the wall, readying himself for an act of desperation. The groans of metal shuddered and called to him, their prison was weakening. Suddenly, one door swung open with a violent clang that resonated like a gunshot. Instinct kicked in. Grabbing her wrist tightly, Carl lunged into the opening, adrenaline surging like fire through his veins. They stumbled into the darkened corridor, and chaos erupted. Distant growls echoed against the concrete walls, hungry and relentless. Carl didn't need to look back to know they were being followed. Running through the corridor, he felt something brush against his back, cold and ghostly. Carl! It's here! She screamed, and the pitch of her voice sliced through him like a knife. Without thinking, he turned to see a mass of shadow flinging itself toward them. Long claws like crescent moons glinted for a heartbeat in the light as it lunged. Go! He shouted, pushing her ahead of him. The desperation clawed at him, the primal will to protect surged up. He felt a sharp breath against his neck, teeth snapping mere inches away. They barreled down the corridor, urgency driving their every step. Yet hope flickered like a candle in the howling wind. Glimmers of daylight peeked in through a small window ahead, promising escape, but could they reach it before they were overtaken? With every ounce of strength, Carl propelled himself forward, but dread filled his heart. Would they be just another meal in a long line of victims? He cast a quick glance over his shoulder. The creature, grotesque and unearthly, was closing in. Run! He shouted, urgency lacing his command. The chase was on, but as they neared the exit, the ground began to tremble. Would the light be their salvation, or was it just another trap? The world outside was a blinding flood of light, but Carl barely noticed. His heart roared in his chest as he dashed toward the exit, pulling the woman along behind him. The shadowy creature grew ever closer. Desperation surged through him. This could be the moment they escaped, or it could be their last. Faster! He yelled, the urgency in his voice echoing down the corridor. Just as they reached the door, it burst open with a crash, swinging wide to reveal the bright heavens outside, and then it hit him, the full force of fresh air, the scent of freedom mixed with fear. They stumbled into the light, but before they could fully absorb their salvation, the growling erupted again, a voice of evil trailing behind them. Run! He shouted again, and together they sprinted into the glaring day, the sun burning away the darkness that clung to their souls. The open tarmac lay ahead, a wide expanse that offered hope, provided they reached the safety of the police station just on the edge of the airport. That was where the crowd was, the bodies, people who could help, protect them from whatever monstrosity pursued. As they bolted forward, Carl dared a glance back. The creature erupted from the shadows, a monstrous silhouette with burning red eyes, mouth agape in a snarl. Its speed was terrifying, muscles rippling beneath sleek skin as it lunged toward them, primal instinct dictating its hunger. "Keep going," she cried, her voice laced with determination. Her grip on his hand tightened, and he felt a fierce connection, a bond forged through terror and the will to survive. With every stride, they pushed harder against the asphalt, exhaustion clawing at their limbs. The police station became a beacon in the distance, but with each step, Carl felt the weight of fear creeping closer. They were almost there, but it was closing in. Suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air, a chorus of hope, but it mixed with the raw urgency of the growls behind them. He didn't dare look back. He could hear it echoing footsteps, the crash of claws against the pavement. Then, just as they drew nearer to safety, a final lunge came from behind. A massive shadow fell over them, monstrous claws reaching out. The woman spun around, ready to defend him, but Carl had one instinct: to protect her. "No!" he shouted, turning to shield her. The blur of the creature rushed forward, and, in that moment, Carl felt a surge of strength as he pushed back against instinct. Without thinking, he turned and with all his might, swung the metal pipe that had been with him since the beginning. It connected with a sickening thud against the creature's shoulder and stopped it momentarily, giving them precious seconds to reach the door, slamming it shut behind them just as the creature crashed against it, thundering, raging against the barrier that now held it. They stumbled into the station, hearts thumping furiously, greeted by shocked faces. But Carl had no time to bask in the relief. They still had to explain, to warn the officers. "Get the perimeter," he shouted. "It's out there. A creature. We need sir." An officer barked in shock, glancing toward the door just as heavy pounding echoed from the other side. Light flooded back into the room, illuminating the fear etched into the faces of those who had witnessed the fight for survival. But before Carl could finish, the creature roared, rattling the door with monstrous fury, the sound reverberating through the walls like a death knell. The officers drew their weapons, bracing for what lay on the other side. "Where is everybody?" the woman gasped, and he could see her horror reflecting the panic that prickled at the edges of everyone crowded in that small space. "Lock it down," shouted the officer once more, and Carl felt time condensing. They were in for a fight of their lives. As they prepared, Carl turned to the woman, their eyes locking. "We'll get through this," he promised, a lump forming in his throat. He knew the truth: whatever hunted them didn't just want them. It was after something else, something buried deep in the shadows, and they had become the unwitting pawns in a game far beyond their understanding. In that moment, Carl felt the weight of their past crushing him, but also the flicker of hope. They weren't alone now. They had each other. With trembling hands, the woman shook her head. "What if we're too late? What if they're coming for us all?" His heart raced as the pounding intensified, fear rippling through them. "No. The night has to end, or we'll be lost in it forever." And as the door shuddered with one last furious blow, Carl gathered what strength he had left, preparing to confront the beast alongside her. Together, they would stand. Together, they would fight. Outside, the sky began to darken, deepening into shadows, but within the confines of the police station, there was a growing resolve, a commitment to face whatever darkness came next. This was their moment, their battle against the night. So they stood ready, side by side, and prepared to face their fate. If you want to hear more incredible stories like this one, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button to help the channel grow. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories. Share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to experience this gripping conclusion. Now is the time to show your support for the channel. Don't wait even one more second.